Thank you, Your Honor. All right, Sergeant Hayes. Instead of showing the picture of you on the tractor, I want to go back. I noticed something you said yesterday regarding, or maybe it was 2 days ago. I've lost track of time. But regarding the tractor, I believe you said, and that's why you were sitting on it because you and me aren't the tallest guys in the world, that it was in the furthest back position.
Yes.
How did y'all figure that out?
I was out there with some investigators from the district attorney's office at the time, and I believe they attempted to adjust the seat and determined it was all the way back.
Okay, and so y'all's method of kind of testing out whether anybody could touch the foot pedals that was short was they had you sit in it.
Correct.
But, you're taller than Melody.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, all right. Because you're what? Did you say about 5'7", 5'8"?
5'6".
Okay. But still taller than 5'3", somewhere in there.
Correct.
All right. But y'all tested and verified. I mean, it was in the back position.
Correct.
All right. I want to go back to 2018 into 2019 and talk about, again, your follow-up investigation with Chris and Scott. I went back and counted your phone calls with Chris and Scott, and there was a number of times that they would reach out to you, yes?
Yes.
Right. And would it shock you if you had 6 phone calls with Chris Ferris in 2018, 2019?
It wouldn't shock me.
Right. And you had also were you aware that Scott called 911 about 6 times on Melody?
I knew there were some 911 calls involving the.
Do you remember anything about those? Because it looked like a lot of those kind of got routed over to you.
I don't recall Scott calling 911 per se. I don't know if I was involved in those. I know there's some allegations that were made between the family that were routed to the sheriff's office, and given the situation, we routed them to another agency to investigate them.
And that was Woodstock, right?
Correct, Woodstock Police Department.
What were you seeing about the kind of the difficulties going on between Scott and Melody through 18, 19? And Chris, for that matter.
There's definitely some contention.
What do you remember?
Tension between everyone, fingers still being pointed at each other, I'm pretty sure. Arguments.
Do you remember any specifics of these arguments? Do you remember that Scott was alleging that his mother was going through his stuff in his apartment? Do you remember any of that stuff?
I do recall that, but again, once we would get the allegations, we would try to stay out of it and let a third party investigate it due to the investigation we were currently running.
All right, but to your knowledge, Scott was, and then there was some threats that were alleged that Scott made against his mother.
Yes.
To your knowledge, Scott was never arrested, correct?
That's correct.
And you had a number of follow-up interviews. I kind of want to talk about, we talked yesterday that, you, for a while there, you're kind of on your own in this investigation. But as time went on, and after you applied for the warrant and the warrant was granted for Melody, there was kind of a second phase of the investigation. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yes.
All right. Could you explain that to the jury?
Once the warrants were taken, the district attorney's office became more involved. They started reviewing the case more heavily and coming up with tasks that needed to be completed.
Okay. And some of that was spending time with Scott and Chris, correct?
Yes.
All right. Tell me about the interview that you had with Scott on 9/20/2019. Do you remember that? You spent a number of hours with him at the sheriff's department.
I called him in for an interview. You said September the 20th?
Yes. And if you've got your report with you, please take your time, refresh your memory on that.
You have a page number?
I don't. I'm sure it's towards the back.
Okay, I found it. And what was your question, sir? What do I remember about it?
Yeah, what do you remember about that interview?
I just, asked him to come back in for another interview.
All right. So do you remember that you spoke with him kind of at length? The first part of the interview would have been friendly. It sounded friendly. I think y'all even took a break together.
Sure.
You remember that?
Yes.
Let him go take a cigarette.
Yes.
All right. And but after that, you kind of started to hone in on him as to the issue of, you kind of looked at him and forthright said, all the bullets on this property are out in your barn. And he said something to the effect of, yeah, that looks pretty bad. Do you remember that?
I don't recall it specifically, but I'm sure it's on the recording.
Okay. And you remember that, you started to kind of press him on, the use of guns and being on the property. You've seen the videos that's been played for the jury about him out there with his buddies kind of doing tactical shooting. Do you kind of remember kind of asking those questions?
Yes.
And I believe after that, that's what led to y'all going out and actually scouring the property for these bullets. Is that correct?
Correct.
That would have been the search warrant where y'all went and did that.
Yes.
All right. And that would be the bullets that I believe were testified to that just came in much later.
Yes.
With the expert from the GBI. But you were on. You kind of shifted. You were doing a further investigation into Scott.
Yes.
Correct.
Correct.
All right. And then there was another interview that you didn't conduct with the GBI. You didn't have anything to do with that. But then you followed up again in May of 2020. Do you remember that? About May 20th of 2020.
I don't recall that one, the May 20th.
You don't recall that one? Is it? I don't know that it's in any of your reports. It was a short interview.
No, it's not in my report. I don't recall it.
Okay. And what you did in that interview, and see if I can refresh your memory
Okay.
so that we don't have to shut this whole thing down and
Sure.
play it for you. You actually kind of had a map of little dots that you were showing
Yes.
Scott, and kind of saying to him, your phone better not be one of these dots.
Yes.
Do you remember saying that?
I do.
Okay. And you were at that point asking more about any revolvers that he'd ever had, any missing revolvers, kind of digging further into his life. You were digging into this fact that he had been previously married and never brought that up. You remember that?
Yes.
Okay. And you also had ascertained that he had a .357 Magnum that he had stolen from him in Columbus.
Yes.
Okay. And you've seen, and I can go get them back out, but you said, you better be telling me the truth because I'm going to call Columbus. Did you ever call Columbus?
I don't recall if I did. I know one of the investigators with the district attorney's office at the time, we looked into it, and I think we came to the same conclusion.
All right. And the same conclusion being there was never a report made of a stolen weapon.
Not that we could find.
All right. I want to talk again about the Colyos. The jury's listened to about three or four Colyos, but this was something every day for a year.
Yes.
Just like you get a text message on your phone or a call, you just get an alert every time.
Yes.
How many do you think there were? Realistically, my guesstimate would be about 1,000 or more.
I'd say thousands. Yeah,
Thousands.
between texts and phone calls. Yeah.
Okay. So, and you listened to all of them?
No.
Not possible. I know. And I'll be forthright with you. It's not. We tried. It's not possible. But there was thousands of phone calls.
Yes.
And out of those thousands of phone calls, there was never a confession. Correct?
Correct.
All right. And the phone call that was played yesterday, that was from 8. I keep doing that. I think it's up there somewhere. The phone call that was played yesterday was from 8/2 of, which let me go back to list of Rusty interviews. Is it gone? Did you leave it with Rusty?
I folded it up, put it on the table.
Well, I'll go get it.
It's folded up on my backside.
Okay, so the list of Rusty interviews, you guys had gone up on 8/2/2018, right?
Yes.
Okay. And on that day, that is the day that y'all had given him that warrant.
That's correct.
And so later on that day, that same day, that was the phone call that we heard,
Yes.
the jury heard.
Yes.
And in that phone call, so would you say that was the phone call where Rusty was really pushing her for an answer?
Yes.
Because it sounded that way to the jury.
Sure, it did.
And I was thinking of something yesterday, and I'm just going to say that everybody knows kind of the way I ask questions sometimes can be I don't know what the correct word for this is, but it seemed like Rusty did a better job of interrogating her than you guys did. Would you agree with that?
Well, we never got to the point of interrogating her. It was early in the investigation when we interviewed her, and didn't after that. So.
All right. So, but he was pressing her.
Yes.
All right. And that was within that same, hours of you literally putting a warrant in front of his face that had, was it conspiracy to commit murder?
Yes.
And the other one would have been concealing the death of another?
Correct.
Any other counts on that?
I believe that was it.
You just typed it up?
Yes, it was.
Signed Hayes on the bottom?
No, it wasn't signed. It wasn't signed. The spot for the affiant, which would have been me, was blank, and where the judge would have been was blank.
Okay. Had you ever done that before?
No.
Okay. Whose idea was that?
It was a group. I don't recall exactly who it was. That Monday morning, typically on Mondays, we would have meetings, briefings about the case, and it was a strategy that was mentioned.
So after you were kind of, I think circles have been you've used the word circle, but then you kind of widened the circle back again and went to Scott. Why did you ultimately move away from Scott in 2020 after you'd interviewed him multiple times?
We interviewed him multiple times throughout the investigation. His statements remained consistent. Scott didn't have motive. Even Miss Ferris, when we interviewed her, stated that Gary was his gravy train. Without Gary, Scott had nothing.
But by that same logic, wouldn't that have applied to Melody too?
Not necessarily.
Can you explain that?
Like you've stated multiple times in this trial, in Georgia, what's Gary's is Melody's, and what's Melody's is Melody's. So even when there's a will in Georgia, it can be contested. So just because there's a will, leaving everything to everyone else. Throughout the investigation, we determined Melody was the beneficiary of all of Gary's life insurance policies.
But you would agree with me by that same logic. If she is falsely accused of murder, then the siblings take the rest of the assets, yes?
I don't know how it would be contested in court after the outcome of this.
But you would agree with me that if she's out of the way because of a murder conviction, then they would stand to inherit everything, yes?
It's possible, yes.
Right, so that's motive, right?
Could be. Yes,
could be.
Could be.
You heard that phone call yesterday. There was this other attorney before we got in this case, Manny, and he went out and did an investigation. Did you do a follow-up investigation after his crew went out? Because you heard it in that phone call.
I don't believe we did, no.
All right. But it sounds to me like their investigation there was more that was looked into. They actually luminol things that you guys didn't luminol.
I never heard in the phone call him say that they luminol. It sounded to me like they went out and looked what we did, and it was no longer glowing. Melody said at one point in that phone call that it should still be glowing if it's blood, which indicated to me they were looking at what we had done. And I know after a certain point, luminol flashes or blue star, even on blood, it doesn't last forever.
Detective Hayes, Sergeant Hayes, you were detective at the time. Sergeant, I know you've been sitting here, and I know I hinted around at this yesterday, and I'm about to sit down and stop talking to you, and this will be finally over, at least for you. But I do want to know this. You have sat here and watched every bit of the people that were supposed to be helping you in this case. And does it not frustrate you? Just even if you could have, from your very perspective, checked off this box, that's done. Don't you wish that they would have done some better crime scene intake over at the barn?
Knowing what I know now, I wish I could go back and change some things. That's an accurate statement.
Right. You would wish that, they could have luminoled Scott's apartment. Yes?
Possibly, yes.
You just basically anywhere and everywhere, right? In the barn.
Ideally we would have had unlimited supply of Blue Star, which I believe is why the GBI was called in, because we ran out. We just didn't have a lot. To luminol or Blue Star everything, but we just didn't have the resources.
But you wish you had. Yes?
Yes,
Okay.
At this point, yes.
More upstairs in the house and more downstairs.
I'd have covered the entire property.
Absolutely. Hindsight is always 20/20.
Absolutely.
And I'll ask you this, because of the breadth of this investigation. I mean, it's almost like fighting a war on three fronts. It's almost impossible historically for any country has that hardly ever won a war on three fronts. You had a barn, you had a fire, you had a house, you had three different scenes on the same property, multiple individuals, but it was a three-front war, and that's never really been won until the United States in World War II, best I can tell. So it was a lot. It was a huge undertaking to try to process this case. Yes?
Yes.
Would it have not been beneficial to have all of the assets of the GBI come and take over this investigation?
I don't know if it would have been beneficial to have their help. Yes.
Okay. So hindsight being 20/20, that probably would have been one of the easiest things you guys could have done to assist in this large investigation.
Repeat your question. It could have been the easiest.
The easiest, the solution that is designed essentially by the GBI to assist local agencies, that mechanism that they've created, that's all over the state, that they go everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been the best thing that you guys could have done in that situation to process this crime scene.
We did call them in when we felt we needed help, and they came in and performed the task that we asked them to do, and then we felt like we had the rest of it covered.
So the answer is you wouldn't change anything?
There are things that I would change, but as far as the GBI specifically, I would not have called them in to take over now.
Your Honor, if I may have a moment. I want to just briefly go back over. Judge, can we switch over to the Elmo? One day I'm going to figure out why this is called an Elmo. So these cell brite extractions that were put in yesterday, without us going through all these again, there's far more. Let's see if it'll focus. there is far more messages than just these, correct?
Yes,
These were, just to kind of explain for the jury, this is kind of like a search tool, this Cellbrite program that everyone uses in law enforcement. You can kind of winnow away like a topic of message. Can you do something like that?
I believe you can search keywords and
Keywords.
narrow down, search parameters between dates and things like that. Yes.
So these, I mean, we're talking about dates that range back to February of 2018, which is what we're looking at here. And we start to move back into September of 2017. These aren't the same conversations. They're just kind of mishmashed together. Yes?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clear that up for the jury so that they knew that this wasn't anywhere really close in time, a lot of them to July of 2018.
Correct.
Okay. I believe that's all I have, Judge.
All right, redirect.
All right, so Hayes, talk a little bit about Rusty Barton some more. Yeah. Was Mr. Barton with his attorney on August 2nd, 2018 when you interviewed him? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. You've been waiting to give me away. Okay, sorry, did you hear my question or do you need me to repeat it?
Can you repeat it?
Sure. Did Mr. Barton have his attorney present for all of the meetings that you had with him?
He did.
So that would include the 24th and the on August 2nd.
Correct.
And on the 24th, is that when he made the statement to you that Melody told him he is on the burn pile, in the burn pile?
Yes.
And then August 2nd, you spoke with him, that's like less than a week later. Did he recant it on the 2nd?
No.
And you spoke with him at length on the 2nd.
We didn't.
When you're doing an investigation, do you consider the source of where the information you are told by witnesses, do you consider the source of that information?
Yes.
So witnesses who are not on scene but have information about what happened at the scene, do you consider that?
Yes.
And consider where that may have come from?
Yes.
The map that you showed Scott Ferris that day, was that his phone, the doc that you were asking about?
No.
When Scott would call you about his mother and what to do in certain scenarios, you said you'd get another agency involved.
Correct.
And did you also inform him that, if you're feeling a type of way, you could always record her if you're concerned?
I did.
Before you met with Scott and Chris on the 20, let me make sure I get the date right for when you spoke with them. Do you remember what date you had that interview with both Chris and Scott?
I don't know off the top of my head. I can find it in my reports.
Let's find that exact date. I believe it was the 27th.
I believe my report says July 26th.
July 26th.
Mm-hmm.
Is that 2 days after Rusty Barton told you Melody told him he is in the burn pile?
Yes.
You had that information before speaking with both Chris and Scott that day.
Yes.
And you had information that
Sensor that overrides my mute session that I replaced this week, so I don't know what's going on. All right, sorry about that.
and you had information when you were talking to Chris and Scott, not only from Rusty, but from inside the home, that something happened inside the home,
Correct.
like a projectile found in the basement.
That's correct.
Okay. And at that time, you also learned about, you had already known about the existence of Rusty Barton because you had spoken to him,
Correct.
and what happened with Ted Wiley back in the day, right?
Yes.
And let me pull up some. We all know we're going to go to the scene view today, so I want to get a little bit of
No objection.
perspective for the jurors. State moves into evidence. State's exhibit Hayes 59 and Hayes 60.
All right.
No objection.
All right. Showing you Hayes 59. What are we looking at here?
That's a view of the main house from outside the barn on the property.
So that's what you can see from the barn, looking over towards the house.
Correct, from that view.
Okay, and where my fingers are right here, kind of in the middle, is that the deck of the house?
Yes.
Okay, so would the burn pile kind of be up here?
Yeah, to the right behind the house.
And now I'm showing you Hayes 60. What are we looking at here?
An overview of the house, an aerial view.
Okay, and I'm gonna pull out S. Ferris 11. Oops. Here we go. These are different angles. Hayes 60 and S. Ferris 11 are different angles of kind of the same aerial view.
Yes.
All right. This pin that Mr. Ferris put in, is that where you recall the burn pile to be?
Yes, roughly in that area.
So would that be up here somewhere? On Hayes 60?
Yes, I believe it would be.
Do you want to go put a pin in it? I'll give you a black one. Where you recall it to be as well. As you were listening to the call-yos throughout this case, did it become apparent to you that Mr. Barton may have told Ms. Ferris that he was recording her?
Yes.
How did that become apparent to you?
When she questioned him about it, in the beginning, she flat out asked him, "Didn't you tell me that they gave you a recorder?" She told him exactly what we did. We gave him a recorder to record her.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Weaver?
Nothing else.
All right, you can sit down. Thank you, sir. All right, you have another witness?
We do.
We
I
need to
make sure
take
she's
outside
here
the-
at 10 o'clock, so I'm gonna make sure
All right.
she's here.
Do we need to take up
And then,
anything outside the jury before
yes.
that? All right, so, all right, we're gonna go ahead and break for, it's gonna be at least be 10 minutes, so y'all can go stretch your legs. It means I'm dead.
Is that what that was?
Yeah, it means I'm not.
No pulse.
I don't have a pulse. That's some issues we need to take up. We also had a little bit of a technology issue that we are trying to address. I also fixed my sensor that overrides my sound blocking, and as a sanction, I will take my phone from myself and I'll confiscate it. All right, go ahead, Ms. Frankish.
Ms. Harris, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. You could please introduce yourself to the jury.
I am Lindsay Harris.
Ms. Harris, where are you employed?
I am employed at the Cherokee Sheriff's Office.
And can you actually spell your first name for Mr. Cox since it's spelled?
Lindsay.
And how are you employed with the sheriff's office?
I am the commander of the Intelligence Division.
What does that mean?
So I run a division that encompasses intelligence analysts who provide investigative support, digital forensic analysts who extract evidence from devices, and crime analysis.
How many people are in your unit?
10 total.
Can you tell the jury a little bit about how you came to be in that position, your education background, trainings, all of those fun things?
Sure. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice with a concentration in forensic behavioral sciences. I have a master's degree in public administration. I began my career as an intern with the Drug Enforcement Administration, which took me into a federally run drug task force where I was an intelligence analyst for over 7 years. After that job, I became the first intelligence analyst at the Cherokee Sheriff's Office, and that was approaching 7 years ago.
Do you, as an intelligence analyst, do you do continuing education trainings and those types of things to keep up with the latest technology?
Yes.
The digital world is constantly evolving. So about how many trainings do you go to a year?
It's hard to approximate, but I mean, we're training constantly. I could say on average, I at least I go to one class a month at minimum. Of course, varying hours, but I attend week-long conferences annually. And, you know, we're always trying to keep up with the emerging technology.
What kind of certificates do you hold in your field?
I am a certified criminal intelligence analyst with the International Association of Law Enforcement Intelligence Analysts, also called ILEA. I am a certified cybercrime intelligence analyst, as well as a real-time crime professional.
Are you trained in certain softwares that assist you in analyzing digital evidence?
Yes, we use various softwares and programs throughout the course of our work, and we constantly train on the changes in technology again and how these systems can assist us. These systems are, you know, law enforcement databases, open source, and softwares that can read certain records.
What does open source mean?
Open source would be social media, anything that you can use as a plain citizen, and then, you know, closed databases would be that of law enforcement only.
Some of these databases require like purchasing the software, and then others you can just download on the internet.
That's correct.
And you've used a range of those types of softwares.
Absolutely.
Depending on what kind of evidence you're looking at.
Yes.
I want to talk about Celebrate. What's Celebrate?
Celebrate is a software, and it's actually physical software that extracts the data from devices, whether it be a computer or a telephone, cell phone, and it extracts all the contents of the device.
What software program do you mainly use to analyze digital evidence personally?
We use a system called PenLink. It's a software that you receive records in various formats. So Celebrate is one way of obtaining a record because it produces a report from the contents of that device. So that report then has to be analyzed. So we use software that we can ingest this large amount of data, and it kind of decodes it in a way that's understandable for us to analyze.
Have you ever testified as an expert before?
I have.
About how many times?
Twice.
At this time, the state moves to admit Ms. Harris as a digital forensic, an expert in digital forensics, acquisition and analysis.
Just very simple, the thing we discussed outside the president, the limitations that have been described by the book.
All right, she's an expert and can testify and give her opinion based upon her expertise. All right, go ahead.
I'm going to actually kind of show an example. We talked about reports, and we have already admitted a few, so I kind of want to go over those with you. Is this a Celebrate report?
Yes, this is a PDF version of what the system Celebrate produces.
And when you receive a phone and it uploads, I don't know what it just did. And it gets,
It's gonna do that every
I know.
because you won't put the licenses, stop doing that.
next time I'll catch it. Okay. So we see Celebrate up here in the right-hand corner.
And then does it automatically produce the summary and source extraction boxes typically?
Yes, many of those are mandatory fields. Some fields can be added in that would give, examiner's name, but those you see there are mandatory fields.
Okay. And then the content actually within this can be selected how?
So based upon the parameters of the search warrant, the contents of the device are extracted, and within each report, you can seclude some information. If you're just looking to analyze text messages at that moment, you can click through and just seclude text messages rather than everything in the device.
Okay, I want to start with the basics. During an investigation, detectives or investigators seize digital evidence in forms of cell phones, records from companies, all sorts of stuff. What happens between them obtaining these from either the person or the company? How does it get to you?
So records, again, they come in various formats, various time zones. So when the investigator receives the records, they're not easy to understand. They come in formats, they could be a text file, they could be a PDF, they could be Excel. And the investigator doesn't have the ability to quickly look and see what the information shows. So in turn, they ask an analyst, and they send the records or provide it to us and in a digital format in which we begin our analysis.
So let's start with records, and then we'll move to physical devices.
Sure.
When you obtain records from a cell phone company, give an example of what it is that you're looking at and what you do with that record.
So phone records or call detail records is I believe what you're speaking of. So we receive call detail records from the provider. This is, your typical T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T. These records, dependent on what is written in the search warrant, they provide you essentially the transaction data. So this is going to show you the date, the time, the direction, the duration of the call, and then the source, whether it is a phone call or a text message. Now, this is network-based, again, based upon the carrier of the phone. And again, based upon the parameters of the search warrant, you could receive a cell site location with those records.
What is that dependent upon?
That's dependent upon the wording of the search warrant. If you ask for locations, or if you're just asking for call detail records.
So you could obtain records without locations if locations was not specified in the search warrant.
That's correct.
And let's move to physical devices. So we've talked about a Celebrate report. When law enforcement collects a physical device from someone, and by physical device, I mean like a cell phone, what should they do with it immediately upon seizure?
Well, as technology changes and updates happen on cell phones, it is constantly evolving. Practice has been, put the device in airplane mode, and this is to prevent external wiping. Again, keeping it charged. Once that device powers off, it is more difficult sometimes to get the contents out of that device. But again, the technology and the updates are constantly changing. On each update Apple pushes out per se could change the security requirements for us accessing that data.
And for general knowledge, could updates be happening in the background of a device without the user even knowing?
Absolutely.
When you receive that device from law enforcement and it's in airplane mode or whatever mode, that is to prevent signals, essentially like Wi-Fi connection, and then the you talked about the actual signals like the phone company signals. Is that what that's for? Network.
Yes. So the physical device does have the ability to be wiped externally. So we always like to preserve evidence. So that's why we will do these certain steps. And sometimes you could place the device in a bag. It's called a Faraday bag, which doesn't allow signals to transmit to the device. But again, the phone records are based on the network, not necessarily the physical device. It's based upon the tower, the transmission of the records.
And those come from the company.
That's correct.
Does the data sometimes overlap? Can you confirm data from a cell phone record in the phone itself?
Absolutely. They should correspond. Now, a user can delete, a text message or delete a call record. Our technology does most of the time still get deleted information, but yes, absolutely. You should be able to look at records. And if you have a device that hasn't been tampered with, you should be able to correlate.
When you have a physical device, do they say you have an iPhone and then you have a phone like a Samsung phone where it's an Android based software? Are they going to extract the exact same data from each phone?
Not always. A company, everything's a little bit different in technology. Apple, again, sometimes their next update could require some apps to have Face ID now. Now that changes our ability to extract every single thing out of the phone. Android has different security protocols and updates as well. So, it's not always the same for every single device. And every device could be, iPhone 6 versus an iPhone 16 could have different technology.
So when you receive a physical device, say a phone, what do you do with it once you receive it from the detective or investigator, if you're going to extract it?
So the physical extraction of a device?
Yes.
So I currently do not download devices anymore. There's a team of digital forensic analysts that do such, but I can speak to their processes in which, they, again, try and preserve the best amount of data. And they log, they have their bench notes, and then they physically hook the device to a machine, which is the Cellbrite system we spoke of. And it runs you through a bunch of prompts in which it starts the extraction of data and then the decoding of the data, which creates that report.
Once you have extracted the phone in that process and in that manner, do you ever have to use the physical device again?
You don't have to, but sure, you can use the physical device to manipulate it and check your data, spot check it. But the system of Cellbrite will let you know exactly what is pulled, so you can verify I didn't get a report in completion of this device.
So if you have your extraction on the Cellbrite on your computer and then you have a physical phone, you can go into the physical phone and verify whether that extraction data is actually in the phone.
Sure.
So some people do that verification.
Yes, and the only exception would be deleted information. It might not be visible on the device, but it will be noted in your report this is deleted.
Okay. And so when you obtain call detail records, how is it that you analyze call detail records?
So call detail records, again, are given in different formats. That's the theme. And we then ingest them into a software. I mentioned Penlink. So this software reads the record. It reads it, each column and row of whatever record we're receiving. And the system knows the companies and has learned the type of record each company gives. So in which I can set that my time zone is Eastern. So I want to view these records in my time zone of Eastern. So although the records come in UTC time, which is a 4 or 5 hour switch, depending, the system knows that I want to analyze this in a certain time zone and it will convert it for me. Now in the software, I can go in and I can spot check each row of data and look at the raw record and see, I can add in a column called provider time. So that's going to show me the UTC time zone, for instance, of the record. And then I can show the conversion to my time zone is correct. And again, it gives me another column I can add in call number, and that gives me the exact row on the PDF or the CSV or Excel file to go look at my raw record and compare it to what the software has read.
I want to talk about this case and how you became involved in this case. Can you tell the jury when you were involved and how?
So I was asked in 2018, July of 2018, to analyze some phone records. Again, it was a situation of the investigators wrote search warrants and got the return from the phone companies, opened up the documents, and they're like, I can't read this. We need someone to help us translate this information. So I was given the records and I ingested them into the system and began analyzing them.
Do you remember whose records you were sent?
I was sent various records throughout the course, but I do remember initially I was sent records for Melody Farris, records for Scott Ferris. I was sent a tower dump of lots of records for that. And I don't remember if these were all in July. It was over the course of when the phone companies were providing records and when the investigators were writing their warrants.
You mentioned tower dumps.
Yes.
Can you explain what that is to the jury?
So everything we've mentioned so far is sort of individual based. So you can ask a provider, AT&T, I need phone records on this phone number. So that's going to give me all the information based upon that telephone number. If you do what's called a tower dump or a reverse search, it could be called as well. This is asking a specific tower. This is asking each company, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile. We want all of the transmissions from this tower during a certain amount of time, a date and time. So this is giving you a wide range of all different phone numbers, not individual based. And it's based upon the location of the towers.
What is useful about that to investigators and detectives when they're looking into a crime?
So tower dumps are used when you don't know who you're looking for, essentially. This is going to give you people's location based upon the location of the tower, who's making calls or sending text messages in a certain location.
Okay. At this time, the state's going to move to admit State's Exhibit Harris 1 and Harris 4 and 5. All right, Ms. Harris, I'm going to pull up what the call detail records you received in this case, just to show as an example. All right, so this is what you received from a phone company, right?
Yes, this is an example of what a Verizon return looks like for call detail records with cell site information.
Okay. And I'm going to pull up this third Excel. That's the cell site incoming, outgoing.
Mhm.
So this is what the record looks like when you receive it.
not left box. Go above 81. Then expand. Pick one column, just drag the column wider. Excel's not liking our extra large.
I don't like it. Anyways, if I were to expand these fields, would there be, I'm not expand the fields. Let's see.
Just click on the drag.
It's just highlighting it.
Yeah, that's like
It doesn't like a big icon. You can't get this fine.
I should have just, oh. This is how many records you get, right? Rows of 7,000, 8,000 rows, right?
It obviously varies, yes,
Yes.
on the date and time, but it's always large. Most of the time we receive a lot of records.
So I want to talk about each of these, and we're going to look in the field up here since I can't expand the field. So network element name, what is that?
That's, again, something the company categorizes for their area of the network in which
There you go.
the transaction took place.
And then this says mobile directory number. What is that?
So mobile directory number, again, these records are sent with a key within that file, and it will explain to you each field. So here you have exactly what Verizon tells us each field means.
And I'm pulling up historical IP log explanation form within this exhibit.
Well, this is IP.
Yes. Okay. So this is sort of an explanation form. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, this is for the IP data, but
Okay, sure.
they send similar for call detail records, yes.
This.
Exactly, yes.
Is this what you typically use? The call detail record?
Absolutely. If you're going to look at a raw record like that, raw being the format you saw with all the numbers, this is a very good key to know which each column means. And this, again, is something that the system penlink I use decodes based upon these fields.
And for the record, I'm showing historical call details with cell sites explanation form PDF within this exhibit. So the mobile directory number is the target number. What's a target number?
The target number would be the number that was written on the search warrant for the records.
And then dialed digital number is what?
That would be the number that target number is attempting to reach.
Call direction.
That is either incoming or outgoing.
And then calling party number.
This is, again, based upon how you see here, it is whether it's incoming or outgoing. And if you read this here, it's saying, you know, if the call is outbound, the column will be the same as the mobile directory target number. If it's, you'll see the called number and the calling party number if it's an inbound, sorry.
So seizure date and time is date and time of each call.
Yep.
Seizure duration is the length of the call.
Correct.
Okay. And that's what this Excel cell site incoming outgoing
Correct.
document that I just previously showed you, that's what this is explaining.
Yes.
Okay. All right, now you mentioned tower dumps. I'm going to pull up an example of a tower dump record in Harris 4. I'm going to pull up Harris 4, which is the AT&T record. So I'm going to pull up the PDF that's titled Tower Search Records Key. Is this the same type of explanation form that we saw in the call detail record?
It is, just for a different company.
Okay. And then, all right, what are we looking at here?
So again, the common formats are not easily understandable. So this is the records of every single phone number that hit this AT&T network based upon the location of the towers that were asked for a date range and time. And what's different here than those call detail records we just looked at would be that target number is not the same because we're not asking specifically for one phone number. We're asking for every phone number that hit a specific tower.
And that way, what do you do with this? Do you search for a certain phone number if you want to know if someone was possibly making the call during that in this time frame?
Yes, various ways. I mean, if you know a phone number you're looking for, that would be an easy way to determine if they're in that location at that time. Tower dumps are also used if you don't know who you're looking for, but you know you have two locations. So I want to know if there's any devices that hit this location and this location in common.
And is it broken down by date and time?
That is the parameters of the records. Now, they're not always sent in chronological order, but they send based upon the parameters of the search warrant.
So each section has a different kind of date range. This one says the 7/3/18, 9 p.m. to 7/4/2 a.m. about.
Yes, again, they send them in every company is a little different. Sometimes they have, make it really technical here, like LTE network technology is different than 5G. So they might send 3 different sets of records for the tower because there's all different types of technology on each tower.
And I do want to clarify, when you search for a phone number in a tower dump, what is going to make a phone number show up?
Well, again, here, you're going to have both sides of the transaction. But what you have to make sure that you give attention to is, again, that target field because the target field is going to show the phone that's actually in the location of the tower. So, a person's receiving both incoming and outgoing phone calls. So although there's phone numbers on, you almost have 3 rows of phone numbers here. Well, you actually have 6, but one's just adding a 1. So you have to make sure you're very careful to notice which phone is in the location of the tower and which phone is calling it.
So you get both the call maker and call receiver.
That's correct.
And this isn't going to tell you, this just tells you if someone was making a call in that area. It doesn't necessarily tell you whether that person was in the area. Is that fair?
It's, again, based upon the phone.
Right.
So
So if they make a call, it'll show up.
A call or a text or a data connection, anything that would hit the network.
Okay. So if you didn't have Wi-Fi, but you're using like your Maps app and using the network to navigate, would that hit a tower?
Yes, that was, again, you pulled up IP data.
Oh.
That's something that you would see on a tower.
Okay. All right. There were other records associated with this case that you analyzed. I want to talk about some Google records. Did you receive Google records in this case?
I did.
In what forms?
Digital form, again. And Google records, again, based upon the user's settings of their account, their Google account, is what the information you'll get back.
In this case, did you receive a general Google return for Gary Wayne Ferris's Gmail account?
I did.
And did you obtain what's called geofence records?
Yes.
Can you describe what geofence records are?
Sure. So very similar to how we were just talking about phone records, call detail records versus tower dump. It's similar. So geofence is asking, I want to draw a virtual fence around on a map of a certain location, and I want you to tell me any Gmail accounts or any Gmail activity, Google activity, within the fence I've drawn on a map. And it's going to give you any account that corresponds to Google within that fence and seclude everything else around it. Now, the Google return, again, is based upon the physical account. So I know I have a Gmail account in the name of Gary Ferris. I want all the records for this Google account.
And that could, so let's go through what Google records may include. So I have a Google Photos account. Could it include that?
Based upon your uploading and backup settings, absolutely.
My email, so my Gmail account,
Yes.
you get that. What else? Yes. Oh, so my Maps history, I use Google Maps.
Yes, locations.
And that may be included with any return if someone were to get a search warrant for my Gmail account.
Yes,
My email account.
based upon your settings with your account and what Google is preserving.
So when you say geofence, I'm gonna use like this overhead aerial. So let's say in this case, for example, they submitted the latitude and longitude of this box right here for the area for their fence. You would only get accounts that appeared in this area for
Any-
whatever time frame
Correct.
they.
Any Google activity that took place during the date and time frame within the box that is drawn.
And that will be included in the search warrant itself.
Those
The
parameters.
parameters.
Yes,
And that's submitted by the sheriff's office, the search warrant.
correct.
So those parameters, the latitude, longitude, and the date range, are requested by the sheriff's office.
Correct.
And then the return will give you any Google activity within that area.
Yes,
And that could include Google location.
yes.
When you analyze digital evidence, how much do you typically know about the case?
Well, I personally like to know as much as I can so I can give the proper analysis. In looking at records, it's very important to know specific events or dates and times that are important to the investigation so I can focus my efforts in analysis.
Do detectives and investigators sometimes request specific information from you?
Yes.
In this case, did you have the opportunity to look at phone extractions of individuals?
Yes.
About how many people and whose extractions did you look at?
Hard to give an exact number, but
You can just name.
yeah,
name names.
I looked at
Please.
Melody Farris's phone extraction, Gary Ferris's phone extraction, Scott Ferris's phone, Terry Braswell's phone, Rusty Barton's phone. Trying to think if there's anyone else.
What about records? How many phone records did you look at?
Lots. Do you want me to try and name what ones?
Is it the same, about the same people?
Yes.
Okay.
I think there was some phone records we did obtain without having devices.
So the records, you don't need the device itself. What do you
Right.
need to obtain a phone record?
The telephone number or some device identifier. There's, I don't want to get too technical, and there's like something called an MZ. It's like a serial number. You could use that as well to obtain phone records.
In this case, did you obtain phone records for multiple numbers that were associated with Melody Farris?
Yes.
Did you obtain multiple numbers associated with Rusty Barton?
Yes.
Now for extractions, how many physical extractions did you have for Melody Farris?
1.
How many physical extractions did you have for Rusty Barton?
I believe 1 physical extraction. I have to look at my notes. I know there was a work phone number and a personal phone number. The personal phone number was the main focus.
The main number that you looked
And
at.
I do know for a fact we had an extraction on the personal phone number.
Did you know the incident date of this case when you were analyzing these records?
I did.
Did you also focus around that time range when you were analyzing these records of the incident date itself?
Yes.
Did you have other information about when the crime may have possibly been committed?
Yes, I was given a time frame.
Ms. Harris, when you were looking at all of these records and extractions, what are steps you take to verify the data that you are analyzing?
And within the records.
The records and the phone, yeah, everything.
So again, I go back to the source, whether it's records, I will go back to that raw record that's given through the company as I'm analyzing it, make sure it's accurate. And I will continuously speak with the case team with my findings and make sure, I mean, especially in the beginning of an investigation, it's a lot of moving parts and information's gathered in so many different areas. So as I analyze things and find things, I don't always know the relevance unless I speak to an investigator and say, this is what I'm seeing. Here's the analysis of this record. Do you need anything further? You know, it's a constant back and forth of communication.
Did our office come to you and ask you to put together a presentation for this jury to go through the voluminous records that were obtained in this case?
Yes, one of the main goals of intelligence analysis is rendering the complexity of all these records and different sources of data into some simplistic and understandable format.
And did you in fact put something together for this jury so that they can understand the records in this case?
Yes.
What all records are included in that presentation?
So there is data from telephone extractions. There's data from call detail records. There's data from Google returns. There is data from, let's see, yeah, there's location data that comes along with the call detail records. There's also, you know, within a phone extraction, there's various types of information you get out of the phone. Again, we talked about text messages, phone calls. There's also health data that was extracted from the device.
I want you mentioned something, and I want to clarify this for the jury. So we have Google locations, and then you have locations from call detail records.
Correct.
How do those differ? Can you explain the location from the call detail records, how that's obtained, and then versus the Google location records?
Yes. So when you ask a phone provider, AT&T, T-Mobile, I need call detail records with cell site locations, it's going to give you the tower that phone call transmitted through. So the companies will give you a certainty of a 3-mile radius that they serve that call. And so each call hits the tower and they say, if this phone call touched this tower, it's in a 3-mile radius. So it's a large area. Now, because that's network-based location. Google is a handset-based location. This is based upon the device GPS or the device's Wi-Fi or GPS, Wi-Fi, and cellular network as well. So Google location is far more precise at times because it's handset-based, not network-based.
I want to talk about these tower locations, the 3-mile radius. How do the towers work?
So,
And I'm pulling this out in case you want to draw an example of how you can tell how the tower works.
you know, towers work differently based upon the location and how urban or rural you're in, how busy a tower may be. So you could be very close to a tower and your phone call is transmitting through that tower, but you'll still see a large pie if I get your records, or a piece of a pie, a sector. Because the company's only going to tell me your phone call was transmitted through this tower, and I can only give you the certainty of this piece of this 3 mile pie. So you can draw a circle around a cell tower, and you could say 3 miles somewhere within this area, this call took place. But I'm not going to give you a certainty of more than 3 miles unless I have a for sure sector of that tower, and then I'm going to give you a piece of a pie. Still goes 3 miles out, but it's narrowing down the face or the sector of the tower.
How many sectors can towers have?
Typically, it's 3 sectors, and that was one of the fields you saw in those raw records. It says azimuth sector, and that's decoding which side of the tower it may be.
So oh yeah. So let's say here's a cell phone tower. Okay, I don't know. And then here's your 3 mile radius. And then the sector, you said it's like a piece of a pie?
Correct.
So it could be, and there's 3 sometimes?
Right.
So if it's like, it could be this could be a sector.
That's correct.
So then it would narrow down, this is where that phone is located.
That's correct. Now, sometimes they don't provide a sector, and you just get the circle, the whole pie.
I know, it's pretty light. Kind of looks like a volcano, but that's okay. Okay, and so when it came to the devices themselves, did certain people have locations in their devices turned on, location services?
Based upon a return from Google, yes,
And then other phones had no location information.
that's correct.
So you compiled people's locations based on the records that you had for that device or person's phone number.
That's correct.
And then, so for Gmail returns, we had Gary's Gmail account. Did he have locations included in that return?
Yes,
So you had his Google location.
that's correct.
And is each extraction of each device going to give you the same amount of information?
No.
So, for example, if you had Rusty Barton's cell phone and Melody Farris' cell phone, they're not going to have the same log data, the same activity information provided. Just depends on how that phone is extracted.
It depends on the device itself, Apple versus Android, the version of the device, how old the actual handset is.
But at this point, I would move into the next phase.
Let's go, if we can go a little bit. We got,
Sure, I'll just make sure we.
Yeah. We got 30 minutes before we
Mhm.
do other things.
Okay.
If you got 20 minutes, we can.
Okay. All right, at this time, state moves to tender State's Exhibit Harris 6.
All right. Objections?
No objections other than all the other objections that I previously made. I stand on those.
All right, and this one, so just, we got,
And I'm going to stop before
Yeah.
we get, yep.
just walk through it and.
Sure.
I know there's something we gotta edit, but it's all right.
Ms. Harris, is this the presentation that you put together for the jury based on all of the digital evidence that you were provided in this case?
It is.
And we reached out to you to start kind of a timeline, is that fair to say, of activity?
Yes.
Among all of the family members and main players in this case.
Yes.
And we asked you to start with Monday, July 2nd, 2018?
Correct.
Okay. These bubbles, what are we looking at as far as the data, where it came from, and why it's included?
This is a visual depiction of text messages that were found in a device. The bubble has two photos of the people within the conversation, as well as a time in which this message took place. For ease of understanding, I added some colors to try and show the different parties that are involved.
So we have, who's this over here?
This is Melody
Farris?
Melody Farris.
And then who's this over here?
This is Amanda Farris.
Who is in the white?
So White is a message from Melody to the other party.
And who's blue?
Blue would be a message from Amanda to the other party.
If you could read into the record the 9:43 text message.
I got Gary's phone. He booked and paid for condo for Chris and Jenna. I'm beyond furious.
And Amanda's response at 9:55.
Oh, big surprise.
Melody's response to Amanda.
He's wrong for doing it. And when I specifically said no and had just reason.
And what is Amanda's response to Melody?
Yep, Chris will never grow up.
This is the same date,
Yes,
July 2nd. And what was Melody's response to Amanda?
but he refuses to help you with dentist.
And then Amanda says,
Yep, can't stop him. It's ridiculous.
what is Melody's response to Amanda?
This is my last straw with him.
And the next message from Melody to Amanda is at what time?
3:07 p.m.
On the same date, July 2nd?
Yes.
What does she say to Amanda?
So Scott left at 8 this morning, gone to play golf, still gone. Then tomorrow goes to lake, so help me God.
Is this still July 2nd?
Yes.
All right, so we have introduced some new people. Who have we introduced?
This is Gary Ferris depicted in the green border and the green message.
So Gary is in green when he's the one sending the message.
Correct.
And this is between Melody and Gary at 3:07 p.m. Can you read that text, please?
Did you book a condo for Chris and Jenna?
And what does Gary say?
I booked one for me and the girls as well.
And then that was at 3:08. And at 3:14 p.m., what does Melody say to Amanda?
Just giving you a heads up about things. Chris continues to charge his cable, phone, and airline tickets to Gary's checking account. Charged their honeymoon and their beach trip year you got married to us as well. Now another beach trip after I told him no and why. He never paid EK, Jenna's ring that was financed by us. I have had it. I'm taking measures to stop this insanity.
Are these messages verbatim the messages found in the phone?
Yes.
So BK, that is how it was typed in the phone.
Correct.
Okay, this is on July 2nd, 2018. What are we looking at here?
This is a photo found in the device extraction of Melody Ferris's phone. And the capture time was 7:56 p.m. on July 2nd.
What is the photo of?
It appears to be a hand with some blood in a paper towel.
And I hope this works. Okay, what is this slide here?
This is a video that was found in the Google return for Gary Ferris's Gmail account.
And the time that you have here at 8:37, was that from the Google account itself?
Correct.
Was this video found in his phone extraction?
I don't believe I found it in the extraction. It was in the Google return.
When you leave a plate, you get to take it upstairs. No matter temper tantrum. Because I had supper tonight and it was 6:40, so I'm sure I'll be feeling poorly here in minutes. But we'll see.
All right. All right, so now we're on Tuesday, July 3rd, 2018.
Yes.
And who do we have? We have introduced some new people. Well, not new people, but to the presentation. Who is this top message between?
Melody Ferris and Scott Ferris.
What does it say?
Let's go to Catch 22 Bar and Grill.
At 12:43. Okay, and then the next message is from who?
From Addie Radisson to Melody.
And what does it say?
Hey, Cameron and I want to have a sleepover at the farm tonight if it works out. Would that be okay with you?
Okay, and that's at 1:44 p.m.
Correct.
So we have a section underneath that says 206 Scott's phone location. Can you tell the jury about that?
So this is a map of Scott's device location at 2:06 p.m. Those pies, you see, those sectors of the cell tower. And you see two here. That can mean the call began in one and ended in the other, or the call could have hit both towers.
So he is in the area of that radius and those sectors. So the pink area, that would be where his phone is.
Correct.
Okay. And you have two locations there for reference. What are the locations that you have included for reference?
2155 Purcell Lane is the home, the Ferris home, and Cherokee Ranch is the location in which the lunch took place.
So they ended up Cherokee Ranch. The text references Catch 22, but you know that they ended up at Cherokee Ranch
Correct.
based on other information. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And that's at 206. Scott's phone is up here.
Correct.
And that is near Lake Lanier.
Yes.
At 2:12, what does Melody say to Addie?
How about tomorrow night?
What does Addie say in response?
That's fine.
Okay, so now we have a blue message. What is this?
This is a message from Amanda, but it's a group text to Gary and Melody.
What time is that at?
3:09 p.m.
On what date?
July 3rd.
What does that text message say?
Hey, I spoke with the prospective photographer. Y'all mentioned you wanted to have a sit down. She can meet us next Wednesday, the 11th at 10 a.m. She said we can do Alpharetta or Buford. She's in Athens, but her parents live in Alpharetta, so she's always there. I'm sure Mama will be going. Daddy, are you wanting to go?
And what does Gary say to this group text?
I was planning to go to the beach with the girls.
All right, and the next one is in white. Why is the next one in white?
It's in white and on this side of the screen, so I can show, this is not a reply to the group message. It's a reply just individually to Amanda.
From who?
From Melody.
What does Melody say just to Amanda?
Ask him when he is going and coming, BK.
And then what does Melody say again?
Now is your time to say thanks for the invite.
So that's just to Amanda, not in the group text.
Correct.
All right, this is the same date, and we're back in the group chat, it appears.
Yes,
Okay, what time?
3:14 p.m. on July 3rd.
And what does Amanda say to her parents?
Oh, okay, didn't know anything about it. Then will it be okay if Mama and I meet with her?
And then immediately after, what does Amanda say again?
The only reason I asked is because she has room to do one more wedding in May. Scared I might lose her.
And Gary says what?
Sure.
Okay, so we're still on the 3rd, but now we're on phone calls, it appears? Is that what this is? Tell the jury about that.
This depicts a record of a phone call. This is something gained through either a phone extraction or the call detail records.
Who is making that call and what time and to who?
Chris Ferris calls Gary Ferris at 3:51 p.m. on July 3rd, 2018. The call lasts 1 minute and 43 seconds.
All right. And at 3:53, what's that?
This is a call from Gary Ferris to Chris Ferris, and the call lasts 8 seconds in duration.
And we have some more text messages down at the bottom. Who is that from?
Ella,
What does she say to Melody?
we are here.
And again, at 3:53, it looks like she sent these almost simultaneously. What's the next message?
I want you to come to the beach.
Was there a response to that message by Melody?
No,
So the next slide, we're still on July 3rd. So we have a call to Rusty. Was this on the same phone that all of the other conversations she was having was on?
no. If you see the red border indicates the second phone used by Melody Ferris.
Did she ever call Rusty on her personal phone? The one she uses to communicate with her family, that you could tell based on records?
All the communication I saw between Melody and Rusty were on the secondary phone.
And what I'm gonna do is, you know these records very well. Do you know the last 4 of the phone she used with Rusty, the last 4 digits?
1987.
And then what is the last 4 digits of her personal phone that she uses for her family?
It's 90. I always get her and Gary confused because it's the same digits. I believe hers 9029.
Okay. So these are her 2 phone numbers. And what did we have for the 1987 number when it comes to digital evidence?
The 1987 number we have call detail records with cell site, no phone extraction. The 9029 number we have phone extraction and call detail records.
So we never had the physical phone for this phone number.
That's correct.
Okay, but we did have a physical phone for this one.
That's correct.
So this call from Melody to Rusty, how did you know this call existed?
Because I was provided call detail records.
So at 4:02, she calls Rusty for how long?
17 minutes and 36 seconds.
And then at 4:36?
12 minutes and 2 seconds.
And at 4:50, it looks like Amanda texts her mom. What does she say?
Chris just texted me asking my plans, and Addison wants to know. I did not answer. He called. I did not answer.
All right, we're still on July 3rd. What does Melody reply to Amanda?
He's here now,
And then what does Amanda say?
of course,
And again,
dropping his kids off.
What does Melody say to Amanda at 5:16 p.m.?
He dropped Ella at Emma's house and took Addison with him.
All right, so we have the red. Red is the 1987 number.
Correct.
And how long does that call to Rusty last?
11 minutes, 30 seconds.
And again at 5:31.
4 minutes, 56 seconds.
What does Amanda's text to Melody say at 5:52 p.m.?
Oh, that's nice.
What is the next message at 7 p.m.? Okay.
Similar to what I instructed y'all yesterday during one of the interviews or the phone conversations, the statements from Ms. Ferris, the defendant, are admissible. The statements from the other parties, if you don't hear testimony about that, are not being offered for the truth of what they are saying. They are only being offered in context of the other conversation to the statements that the defendant makes and to establish the timeline. All right, go ahead.
So I want to ask you at 5:52 p.m., well, this call at 5:31 that Ms. Ferris has with Rusty, and then Amanda hits her up at 5:52 and 7 o'clock p.m. Did Melody ever respond to the 5:52 text message?
Nope.
You're not leaving that out or anything?
Nope.
And then Amanda to Melody, this photography screenshot, did she respond to that?
No.
So the last activity we have for her, at least up till 7 o'clock at this point, is the 5:31 call to Rusty.
Sorry, say again.
The digital evidence was the last call she made was at 5:31, and she did not respond to Amanda either of these times.
I believe there's more in the next slide as far as other calls that day, if that's what you're asking.
Well, let me just hang on 1 second.
Are you asking on a specific phone?
Yes, her personal phone. Did she have any activity after this 5:31 call from Melody to Rusty up until the 7 o'clock time?
Oh, no, ma'am.
All right. What are we looking at here? And this is still July 3rd. What are we looking at here?
This is location data based upon Google return for Gary Ferris's device. And the circle on the map shows Google provides location, again, it's more precision located based on the handset. They give a certainty amount. So within that circle, they give a certainty amount of 10 meters, 20 meters. And that's what's depicted within the purple circle there, is the amount of certainty of where the device is located.
So it appears Gary's device is moving away from the property up towards Free Home
Yes,
from 8:28 to 8:40.
correct.
What is this?
This is showing, again, a satellite view of the point of Gary's device from 8:40 to 9:21 p.m. on July 3rd.
And that is in that Free Home area. Go back. Is
Correct.
that in this Free Home area right here at the top?
Yes.
Like that 8:40 ping, is that in the same location?
Yeah, so the satellite view shows it was a repeat location, same certainty and everything.
Okay, so at 9:26 p.m., what are we looking at there?
A call from Melody to Rusty on the 1987 phone.
Was there activity on Melody's personal phone prior to this, after that text with Amanda?
No, she never replied to that 7 p.m. text.
Did she text anyone else?
No.
Did she call anyone else?
On the 19, on the,
On the personal phone,
Personal.
the 9029 number.
correct.
So what's the next?
So this is
activity we
showing, again, Google location for Gary's handset between the times of 9:26 and 9:32 p.m.
And it looks like he's moving closer to the house,
Correct.
or his phone is. All right. So what are we looking at on the next slide?
This is the location of Gary's handset within the purple circle again at 9:34 p.m. on July 3rd.
And that's a little bit wider radius.
Correct.
And that's the house, 2155 Purcell Lane.
Correct.
Okay, now we're at 10:52 p.m. What are we looking at here?
This is a call from Melody Farris on the 9029 personal phone to Scott, in which the call takes place for 1 minute and 5 seconds.
What's the map down below?
That is the record of the call based upon Scott's location.
So his location between when he left up to the lake at 2, whatever that previous slide said, a little after 2 o'clock, and this 10:52 call, did his location ever show closer to the house?
No, it remained in the northern area up there.
Towards the lake.
Yes.
So when he received this call at 10:52, he's in that cone sector, that pink area.
Correct.
Or his phone is in that.
Correct.
You want the stopping point?
Good stuff.
Okay.
This is for you. All right.
Yep.
Because food's here, and y'all want me to read. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna, as I've referred to it as a field trip, it's actually called a jury view. This is not something we routinely do, though I have done this in 2 cases as a judge and requested it once when I was solicitor, and we did it. But let me kind of explain to you what the ground rules are, and then also the lawyers have given me a statement that we've agreed for me to read to you. Today, under the court's direction and authority, you're going to do a jury view of the scene at 2155 Purcell Lane. This is a scene view only and not an evidentiary review of evidence. There will be no separate testimony or evidence presented to you during this jury view. This procedure only allows you to view the place discussed in the case to possibly better understand the testimony and evidence introduced at trial in the courtroom. That being said, please remember that time has passed since 2018. The scene and things on it have changed, and the parties will address such during the proceedings. I remind you that jury deliberations have not begun. You're not allowed to discuss the case or deliberate anything about the case until further instruction and charged by the court. As such, this prohibition includes all times to, at, and from the scene today. So y'all aren't supposed to talk to each other about the case, as I've directed you so far, while you're in the bus on the way there, on the way back. Y'all don't need to talk about anything while we're at the scene. Now, y'all can chit chat about whatever you want to on the bus. There'll be bailiffs and deputy, at least the deputy on the bus with, or I'm not entirely sure of what the actual incident's going to be. We got folks that are taking care of that, but there will be at least bailiffs on the bus with you. There'll be security going out with us. I've maybe explained to y'all what y'all are going to do. We brought food in for y'all. Y'all are going to take a 30-minute break, eat pizza, then load on the bus. Y'all will go out to the scene. We will hopefully be 30 minutes ahead of you. We will map out the route y'all are going to take. Y'all will unload from the bus. We'll walk down together, follow the layout that we've agreed to, and then y'all will walk back on the bus, and then y'all be brought back here. When y'all are brought back here, y'all are dismissed for the day. I'm not going to give you any additional instructions. The plan was for us to do some extra work. We might not do that. I might go home and try to get rid of this thing in my head or go see a doctor. So we'll, but in any event, y'all will be dismissed for the day, and we'll start back tomorrow. I thought we might do maybe not a full day tomorrow, but I think we'll probably try to get a full day in tomorrow. I still think we're on timeline based upon what I've told you. I think the evidence will wrap up next week, and then we'll do closing and charge on Monday, the 4th. Everybody understand the procedure of what we're doing? Yes, bring your notepads, but if you bring your notepads, then y'all need to come back to the jury room, leave your notepads before you're dismissed. All right, and leave your notepads here. But yeah, that's fine if you want to bring those. All right. But don't review or discuss your notes or anything on the bus. All right. Anybody else got any questions? All right, y'all can be excused for lunch. Again, remember everything I've told you so far. All right. As far as our media folks go, have y'all talked among each other and that's something that you've agreed to and discussed with your attorneys, and we've talked about that throughout the process. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right.
The second thing is, if the court does end up wanting to have a preliminary charge conference, which now we're hoping you do not, we're waiving the strict presence at that, and so if you can go ahead and do so.
All right. So at this point, I don't feel good, and I don't want us to come back. I'm going to go bury myself under a comforter and try to get better. So if we do it, but if we, what the lawyers are talking about is the charge conference where we talk about the law that we would give the jury in the case. We will probably do some of that next week, but they're asking that you be allowed to waive your presence at that hearing if you choose to. Is that something that you'd like to consider and do? All right, so you waive your presence if we do a charge conference? Okay, all right, so we're not gonna do that today, but we will see where we break on everything else and then try to make the best use of our time that we can.
And Judge, also one more thing if we can, we have sent to the defense all the information or photographs that Martha Daniels provided to us. She is available to meet with them this afternoon. If they do not want to, but just put that on the record.
So yeah, that would be a good use. We talked about trying to do that this morning, and I guess that didn't happen. So yeah, that would be a good use of this afternoon if y'all.
If they change their mind, I'll make her available.
All right, anything else?
Thank you so much. And we'll
Okay.
tweak that presentation and provide it to them.
All right. Okay, we'll be in recess for the jury view.